Hello, Kelly.
Hi, it's so fun to be here. I can't wait for this conversation.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, hasn't it? We've been talking
Yeah,
about this for a while.
for years.
Yeah. So what I normally do is ask people, guests such as yourself, to share with the audience, who are you and what do you want people to know about you?
Okay. Well, I think um, first and foremost, I'm a mom. I have a daughter who's 14 years old, who I love to pieces.
Hmm.
I live in Canmore on Treaty 7 territory, and really, really love it here and feel a lot of comfort from our gigantic mountains. Canmore's deep in a valley. It's a really beautiful place to be. I think it's something that I'm really proud of about myself beyond just being a mom, um, is all of my coaching experience and who I am as a coach. Um, I have my master's in organization coaching. I have an advanced coaching practices graduate diploma. I have been steeped in coaching for just over a decade. And the reason for that is because I just love it. I love it so much. I actually just had a client this morning, and it was our first session of 10 sessions. And she was just so lit up
Hmm.
by some good, deep thinking that she did, and saying and making connections to things that she hadn't made connections to before. And I get off those calls, I hit end, and I'm just like, ah, it's the honor of my life. It's so cool just to be able to touch one person's life.
Mm.
I remember when I was first starting coaching, or not even starting coaching, my first coach um, ever, my first coaching session, we kind of went through, and then she said, you know what, it's just been such an honor to be here with you. And I was like, if I can do this for one other person in my whole life, it's awesome. It's worth it. I'm in, I've done what I need to do. And so to be, here where I am working with CCA, I'm just so, um, that's me getting my emotions under control. I'm so, it's so cool, right? It's so cool because we are like, your mission is to multiply the impact of coaching. And we get to teach students, and then they get to go out and they get to coach families and individuals. And that has the ripple effect on communities. And it's just super cool. And so obviously I love coaching, and I'm also really of the mind. I love our evidence-based fundamental that we have at Canada Coach.
Mm.
I tend to also be a bit of a hippie witch, and that's okay. I love that part of me, but I really do like that foundation of evidence-based coaching that we have, and living in both of those spaces.
Hmm.
So that's how I would introduce myself, including all that emotion that came in halfway through.
Well, it's not coaching if there isn't any crying. So
That's right.
not really coaching, but we're talking about it. So I think it fits.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just want to echo what you said about the honor. I like the way you said that, the honor of being with people when they're at their most, I want to say vulnerable, but I wonder if the word is, um, most susceptible to listen to that inner voice, like to the inner wisdom that comes up when it's quiet, when it's still and someone's holding that space for you. So I think, yeah, I know what you mean when you have a great coaching call or a great class. Lately for me, it's been more classes than coaching. And I just absolutely, that energy, you never get tired. I mean, yes, I get tired at night because I guess I wake up every day feeling like I got the most out of every day, and I got to experience other people's energy, which gives me energy, right?
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I know you hear this all the time. Students check in at the beginning of class and they're tired and they're distraught, they're distracted, and life's busy, and they come and they all, and I mean, I think I want to say all, but probably not all, but many of them say this is a place of refuge for them, that they get to be selfish in this space and think about themselves. And then their energy shifts by the end of the call, right? It's, oh, I feel energized and I can't believe how tired I was when I came in, and now I have all this energy.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing, that shift. And really, that says a lot about our students, actually, that they're really in this, they're learning about something that they feel is part of their purpose, that they feel, and they're doing so much self-development work as they're learning with us and creating these amazing cohorts, where they're coaching back and forth. And so learning and learning and learning. And then our classes are really about sort of bringing all that learning together, bringing them together, and then just adding on another layer and another layer as they go through their work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I've especially seen how the connections that are created in our classes with people who come together from, all over, just as a fluke. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason, but they end up together and they create such synergies. And I think especially now in this time of pandemic, in this time of, the epidemic of loneliness that we talk about, this has been a real gift, this community, these classes we teach. And I see how people are reaching out for connection. And these classes bring people together to connect and to learn from each other. I mean, we teach, right? We're facilitators, we are learning leaders, but we really, I mean, I think the group teaches itself, right? We learn so much from everyone who comes. And so yeah, I'm just noticing how connection is a real, one of the biggest gifts of this practice that we have.
Yeah, and that brings up for me too, leaning into the wisdom of our classes, leaning into the wisdom of the individuals, because everybody is coming from such different spaces and they have their own thoughts about how these things show up for them. And so being able to flip it back to the class and say, okay, well, what's the wisdom in the class? What do you all think about this? And just having those really generative, interesting conversations. And so it's not us sitting, at the front of the class with our, chalkboard. It's really about these conversations and how to anchor and land the learning in all sorts of different ways, with wisdom from the participants as well. And I think that's where really strong learning comes from.
Absolutely. Yeah. And isn't that what coaching is, right? It's about empowering people to think for themselves, to explore and reflect, and on their own experiences, and discover what they already know, the experts in their lives. So this brings me to the question, you've been coaching a long time. So what brought you to the world of coaching?
Well, that is an interesting question for sure. And I think we all have such unique individual stories. Mine is that I have always known that I'm a healer. And so my grandmother, I think she said it to me once, maybe even. It wasn't a message that I heard over and over and over again, but my hands were always hot as a kid. And I think she just might have said, oh, hot hands, healer's hands. And that just stuck with me. And so I always knew I was some sort of healer. And in my 30s, I went through a wicked divorce. It was truly wicked. It was so not good. And I was a wreck, but I was on a community foundation board in the small town that I was living in. And I was at a community foundation meeting, and this woman came and sat beside me. And I was like, oh, hi, I'm Kelly Wood. Who are you? And I said, what do you do? And she said, I'm a life coach. And I was like, a what? And she said, oh, a life coach. And this is kind of what I do. And in that moment, I said to her, oh my God, do I ever need you? Like, you know, the universe has given me you right now. But over that relationship and our series of sessions, I was like, oh, this feels good. It brought together my natural curiosity. The only other thing that I could have been, I believe, is a journalist. And I know you and I were in the journalism space for a while. But this allowed me to be deeply curious about the person that was across from me. And so I just fell in love. Like I just knew. And as a lot of our students, when you're going through coaching programs, you're learning about yourself. It's all about developing self-awareness. And so that's what happened for me. I was hooked. And then I stayed in training. Well, I've never stopped training. So it's been like 11 years or more than that, maybe 12, maybe. And oh yeah, it has been 12 years. And that's the wonderful thing about loving what you do. Professional development is not hard. It's a gift in coaching.
Yeah. So, you know, at that time, and actually I really appreciate what you said about being coached to discover coaching, because a lot of the people who come to our programs say that in their check-in on the first day when they introduce themselves. They said, you know, I was being coached and I knew I wanted to do this for my, like, become a coach. So I think it's very, very cool how that happens. But I'm also wondering, because I know a lot of people do wonder, how was it for you starting a practice as a coach, you know, building a business, a single mom, fresh out of divorce? And I, you know, I was smiling as you said that. I didn't mean to smile because divorce is terrible, but just kind of relating a little, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. And so what was that like for you, building a practice and, you know, client base and establishing yourself?
Yeah. So my story is one of like slow and steady and slow and steady. You know, as I did more training, I came to understand that this really is my thing. Like I knew that it was my thing. And so I put my eye on it. I put my eye on this is what I want to do for my life. This will financially keep my daughter and I safe. We're going to be stable and safe, and we're going to be able to create the life that we want. That's all. And I had to have it as a side hustle for a really long time. So I was working full-time jobs and I would do it during the weekends or the nights. And then I would become super busy, super emotional. I would go through big dips and I would be like, okay, I have to stop coaching. I can't hold it. I actually cannot be that kind of support to someone else as I'm going through this hard time. And then, so I would give my clients away. I would say, here's another coach. I really trust her. You know, you can continue the relationship with this coach. And then I would step back in. And every decision that I made over, you know, 8 or 9 years, every decision I made was with my eye on what I wanted to create, which sounds, as I say it, I'm so amazed that I had that tenacity and that vision. But it was true. And so what I ended up doing was I ended up getting jobs that would help me grow and help me network into the coaching space. You know, I worked in leadership with an organization here in the Bow Valley and met some of the most talented leadership facilitators and sort of deep dive workers, transformational coaches that in Canada. And I got to see them in action and be inspired by them. And so when the pandemic came, I had a 5-year plan to leave that organization and step into my own practice. And the pandemic happened and I was like, not a 5-year plan, a 6-month plan.
Right.
Yeah. So here we go. And, you know, from a business building perspective, it was a huge blessing because I had already built up all of this network because I was always saying, I'm a coach. I'm a coach. This is what I do. This is what I do. And when that kind of moment happened, I actually was way more ready than I thought, because I had had it for a side hustle for so long.
And is that when we met?
Yeah.
I'm remembering now. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's when you came into the academy.
Yeah. That's when I sent you a random email from someone who you had no idea. I didn't know you at all. And I was like, hey, I think I should work for you. And Marianne got a hold of me and she was like, hey, I can set up a meeting. And then we met, and that's the beginning of a really cool story too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's been, so it's been 2 years at least, 2.5 already. Wow. Time flies, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So what was, I love how you talk about your vision, for what you wanted and how you stayed on course with that vision, even the highs and lows, that happen when we talk about vision a lot in our coaching programs as a way of staying connected to our goals, right? What would you want people to know about coaching, about the opportunity?
What is immediately coming to mind, and I actually don't know if it really answers your question, but what I want coaches who are starting out to know is, like, go for it. Everybody has imposter syndrome. Everybody has inner critics. My inner critic was like, you have to have everything perfect before you invite anyone in. And it stopped me for years. And I see it stopping other people. It takes a lot of courage, and courage is accessible to us. We can have courage. And so don't let that perfectionism stop you. Like, just go to a website, like Wix.com, or what's the other one, Squarespace, and put up a landing page. Just tell people that you're coaching. I think, that marketing rule of thumb that we all know, people don't even hear a message for the first 7 times. They don't even hear it. They're looking at you and being like, yes, 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 but they're not hearing it. And so you have to kind of tell people again and again and again in all sorts of different ways. And then they're like, oh yeah, Kelly Wood, she's a coach, she's in this space. That does not answer your question, I don't think, though. Is that
the opportunities? Yeah, I was going to say, what was my question? The opportunities. Well, I think it does, though, because what you're saying, at least what I'm hearing, is that a lot of people don't do it because they're afraid. And part of that jumping in, I mean, this podcast is a case in point, right? I've been thinking about doing this for so long, but that fear, that imposter syndrome, that inner critic has been so present. So I backed off for quite some time.
Yeah.
And now I realize, having done this now for a week and a half, I'm like, oh, this is fun. I actually really like it. So it just goes to show that 99% of the things we worry about never come true. And so
totally. And can't that be a driving force for us to know that it is a common experience to have fear, to stop ourselves, but then when we get in, we're like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah.
That's a very real possibility. You might jump in and be like, oh, this is as scary as I thought. But, equally so, it could be completely awesome. It could really light you up.
Something else I heard you say was the continuous learning piece. I think that's a thread that sort of binds everybody in our community, this love of learning, this commitment to continuous learning and improvement. I myself am on my own path of continuous learning. I wonder, because you have your master's and I know you're on your MCC path now. What do you think? Like, some people feel like, oh, I just need more training. I just need more training. One more course. What's your thought on that for yourself in your own journey? And also, like, what would you say in hindsight, looking back, to others?
100%. I love this question. And I just ran into someone. I went for a walk with someone the other day, and she was taking this course that she literally could have taught. She could be a mentor for that coach. And I was like, what is happening to you here? What is going on? And we use that, you know, in some cases, we use, I just need one more class. I need one more credential. I need one more. I need one more. And literally to stop us from ever actually just doing the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a mentor once who was really clear. She was like, you're kind of like forking around. No, she didn't. She was like, you're forking around.
Feedback is a gift.
Yes. She's like, you have all that you need to go forward. You must put out a web page, Instagram thing, a conversation, anything. This is a delaying tactic. And she was right. She was 1,000% right. And that is, it's okay. It's part of the human condition. But I think that there's real power around the self-awareness of it. Just the awareness of like, I'm putting it off. I'm not stepping into my vision right now. And then getting coaching around it.
Mm.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about a quote that I heard from Kobe Bryant. It was, you know, if you get up and you try and you win, you still have to get up the next day and win again. If you get up and try and you fail, you still have to get up the next day and try again. So either way, there's no end point, right? We continue. And that's why when, you know, when people say, oh, I'm too old to go back to training, or I'm too old to, you know, to go back to school, basically, I say, well, you're still going to get older no matter what you do. So why not get older smarter? You know?
Yeah.
Or more aware or more experienced or something. But I just, so this idea of not ready, I think, is a story we tell ourselves often. I mean, of course, there's credentialing. I really believe, I mean, I found, you know, we have the academy for the reason that I believe that there is, you know, credentialing is so important, regulations, professional conduct, ethics, all of that, skills, strategy, technique, those are all really important tools for a coach. Once you have that, you know, the only experience that is needed is the practice, right? The conversations. We know that coaching is learned in practice. So it's this opportunity to get in there. And, you know, I'm an MCC level coach. I gave a demo in a class 2 days ago. And I mean, I'll say it, it sucked.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, and they didn't think it sucked. They were like, oh, that's so good. But I knew what I missed. I knew what I didn't, you know, it was only after, and I knew why. I mean, I had distraction. I had dogs barking. I had kids. I had a group watching me. Like there were a lot of elements, you know?
Yeah.
But I know that road is still a bumpy road, highs and lows. And, you know, my curve keeps going up, but it's an interesting, you know, it's an evolution, I guess is what I want to say.
Yeah. And I think too, and I tell my students, like when two humans get together, we cannot tell you how it's going to go for sure. We can tell you the framework, and we can tell you how to create trusting space, and we can give you all these tools and strategies. We can talk about them. We can create self-awareness around them. And so they're in you to deliver to your client, but we never know what's going to happen when two humans come together.
And
it's
I can also
the same.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I want to just say, because I'm super like lit up right now. I know that the way that I became really good at what I do is through failure. It is the only way, because it's the way, like after that session I had 2 days ago, I know exactly what I'll never do again. You know, and so that's the learning opportunity, right? It's just an opportunity to reassess. You know, that's how I see it.
And what freedom, and we say it in class, like you must fail. You have to, you must.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not learning. And you're never going to get good at this. You have to get off calls and be like, oh no. And do that 10 times mindset, do a process for reflection. And exactly what you said, I will never do that again for sure. And come back, stand back up, just like you were saying from the Kobe Bryant quote.
Yeah.
Stand
Well,
back up.
I've always looked to people who have tried and failed, to people who have been successful, and then not just in coaching, but in any industry or any walk of life. And I tell students that all the time. Who do you know who's doing what you want to be doing and who's doing it well? Or who do you know who has gone through, incredible odds to get what they want? And so I'm constantly looking at people as mentors, right? And especially with podcasts today, you can get in on a conversation with the most incredible people in the world that you would never have access to before. So it's that really accessible way to learn. And one of those learning opportunities was Sarah Blakely. And when she, at one point, I think it was in a podcast or somewhere, I don't even know, but she said when she was young, her father would ask at the dinner table every night, "How did you fail today?" Because she said he wanted the family to become familiar with and comfortable with the word failure.
Yeah.
And I think that's what, we talk about the 3 F's in coaching, right? Fear, failure, and what was the other?
Feelings.
Feelings, right? Fear, feelings, failure. The 3 F words. The more we talk about them, the less power they have, right?
100%.
The less power they have to hold us back. And so, yeah, really just such a great conversation because we all have fear in us, right?
Well, and you know what that brings me to, like, one of your passions is teacher as coach, and allowing our kids to understand that failure is actually expansion. Failure is actually good. Because we certainly weren't given that message as kids. They are growing up in a time where they have much more access to emotional intelligence work. And it will be really cool to see what the outcome of that is, as they get into the workforce. How is their relationship with failure, with things like conflict, and having the important conversations that need to be had rather than parking them because they're scary.
Yeah. Those fierce conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you think is the trend in coaching right now? Where do you think it's going? We know it's been on the rise the last 10 years. I mean, I've seen more coaching books out there than ever. And when I started, I didn't see barely any.
Yeah.
There are a lot of resources, a lot of talk. I believe that coaching is the language of influencers and leadership. And I wonder, like, where do you see from your perspective, your point of view?
Yeah, I think I feel worried that there are so many people out there calling themselves coaches who have training. Back to the conversation around education and how we can use courses as sort of holding off tactics so we don't go into action. But I want to echo what you said. Having training in this space is so important because we are holding people. We are holding important and transformational conversations with people, and it's impacting their lives. And so it does make me feel worried that we're seeing so many people calling them coaches and they don't have coach training. So I think that the people who are putting their time and energy into coaching certifications, I think is very important. Harvard Business Review said it, and they said it a couple of years ago, if not a few years ago, that emotional intelligence is as important or more important than technical leadership or technical knowledge in leadership. So emotional intelligence is equal to or more important than technical knowledge in senior leadership. And I truly believe that we're at an age and a time where we need to have that command and control has its space. Have its space. but the space for it is becoming smaller and smaller and smaller. The ability to deal with conflict well, to have conversations that are tough, to have the ability to hold space for another person and be able to listen to them. I think that's the space. And I think that you do too. That's the space for innovation, for creativity, because it's all underpinned by trust in relationships. And when we are trusting in relationships, there's so much room for emergence. So I truly think that, and from my perspective, oh boy, here we go. I'm sorry, I know I'm talking a lot, but from my perspective, I know, emotional intelligence work was being researched in the late 80s, and the first papers came out in the early 90s. And so it is relatively new. And it took a long time for it to kind of gain traction. It's here now. And so leaders, no matter what sector they're in, corporate, government, charitable space, regulatory, whatever it is, now there is expectation that they can deal with their teams in a way that supports them.
Yeah, I was reading an article this morning, actually, in HBR saying it's called, the focus of the article was relationship currency. That's what they called it. And what they were pointing to was the fact that, people in organizations today may have technical knowledge and subject matter expertise, which they need to develop. But if it's the only thing you're developing, you're going to get surpassed for leadership roles, because companies and people matter more than the technical aspects of the work now.
Yeah.
That relational piece is so important. And I was even talking to somebody, yesterday I was doing another podcast, and he was a gentleman who said he worked, for large corporate hotel chains and worked his way up to executive level. And he said the difference for him was that he focused on people, not the work. The work was important, but the people and the relationships are what got him to where he ended up being at the very top of the corporate ladder. And so that's why, again, I get so passionate about coaching, because it's such an important skill in relation to others, right? In relationships. And it's, as you said, equal, or if not more important than the technical knowledge. And in fact, lately, everywhere, I don't know, the universe is talking to me, I guess. All this information about medical practitioners needing support in interhuman relations skills. And I've been reading about this in my grief course at Harvard. I've been reading about it every week. It comes up in every article, how there's a gap in the technical knowledge that medical practitioners gain, and then that human relationship or human relations skill is missing. They're not taught, they're not given any skill on how to deliver bad news, on how to support a grieving person, there's just not enough. And then I hear now, I don't know, the RAS, right? Reticular activating system is alive. And now suddenly I'm seeing all kinds of stories, and people are coming to me with stories about that very topic.
Yep.
What do you think about that world? Yeah.
I want to respond to what you just said there. I think one of my interesting questions that I'm holding right now is how is coaching part of the solution to systemic burnout in organizations? Because it is systemic. It's systemic to bureaucracies, right, within the company itself, but it's systemic throughout our world. Like, whether I'm working with corporate, government, or charitable leadership teams, I'm hearing burnout everywhere. So what is the response that we can start to offer to help soothe that burnout? Because when burnout is really prevalent, people are feeling very dissociated, very distant, very apart from people, values, mission. And this is all of our work as coaches. So how are we training senior leadership to model into holding those important conversations, taking care of themselves in good ways, ensuring that values and mission are really being spoken to within the organization as like points of inspiration. And what I'll also say is, the work that Canada Coach does and the work and other work that I'm doing out in the world when I'm working with teams, it's not like you have to spend 1 million, though please do spend $1 million if you can. But it's not like you need to spend $1 million on this big professional growth program. You need to get your leaders in a room for a couple of days to have these conversations, to create the awareness that there are really good tools. This is skill development. And I think people really need to hear that. It's not this innate knowledge that we all that we are sort of emotionally intelligent. It is skill development. And we have programs where we can come in and just sit with your senior leaders and talk about what that looks like. And that has profound effect the next day. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of the most powerful things about coaching is it doesn't take a long time to see the difference and for others to feel the difference in you when you start to think about, like when you start to develop these skills and start to apply them. And I think what you just said brought to mind the fact that, coaching is seen as a soft skill. Is so interesting because it's what do I want to say about that? It kind of makes me sad actually, because it's such a powerful mind shift. I've seen it over and over in the most intellectual, the most professionally accomplished, the most, innovative people who come to our programs, because we have all of those beautiful, brilliant professional people coming through our programs. And they go, what? They sit there and go, okay, I didn't think of it that way. Or they take a breath, or they're like, oh, I'm unlearning so much right now. That word unlearning comes up a lot. And so what would you call it? It's not a soft skill. Like, what would you call it?
You know what? I have strong feelings about that, like soft skill. I think it's a term out of the 80s. I think, what is it even? What is a hard skill and a soft skill? So I just want to banish that from the universe. Let it be so. And what would I call it? I would call it well, it's fundamental in today's reality. It's not hard or soft. If anything, it's like a weave of skills that are mandatory if you want to be successful in any space, even within your family system, your community system. If you want to make an impact on people, you need to learn about yourself. You need to learn about how other people communicate towards you. You need to be self-aware and then be able to manage relationships.
Okay, here's an example. Perspective is the most influential thing in your life, right? Perspective is how your point of view of the world, and that influences what you think. It triggers feelings, it influences your behavior and your actions, and everything begins with perspective, because perspective essentially is a meaning you've made of a situation, right? Yeah. If we can't question the meanings we've made of things, how are we ever going to have inclusion, and be able to bring down barriers and come together and connection? We have to first be able to question our own beliefs and ideas. And so I think it's far from a soft skill. It's probably the hardest thing to do.
Yeah,
right?
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
Don't we know? Right. So it's this, yeah, it's because you can't maybe put a mathematical equation on it.
Yeah. Except for now we can, right? Now there's a bunch of our return on investment studies that have been done about coaching. So in fact, we can.
Well, we also have the studies that show how the brain can change, right?
Right.
Neuroplasticity of the brain and gray matter, and how it can be affected by simply changing perspective, by mindfulness, by meditation, by all those practices. We see the brain changes. So yeah, we do have plenty.
What would you, sorry to interrupt. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, we're such coaches. It's
I know. And we're both like stoked. But what would you call it then? Like if it's not soft skills, which we banished from the universe.
robust.
Robust.
I don't know. I have to think about this, but you know what? It's a really good thing to think about, because and I know that I've seen some good language around this. I just have to, jog my memory, but there's definitely a term to be coined here.
Yeah.
Coaching that isn't soft. It's powerful. It's transformational. It's meaningful.
Yeah.
It's, and it truly is life-changing. I have seen people, I mean, I witnessed a gentleman in our course. He was a chaplain. He was he had strong faith. He was a member of his faith community, and he left that community during our program, not because of anything that we said. It was, he had a moment, an aha moment for himself. He wasn't happy anymore. He had been reflecting, which I think is what brought him to the program.
Yeah.
And midway through, he made an announcement to the group. Yeah. And it was profound.
Yeah.
And it was because of the perspective shift he had, and it doesn't, I call it, and I think, maybe Tony Robbins or someone said this, it's a 2 millimeter shift, right? It's literally a 2 millimeter shift. It doesn't take leaps and bounds to change your life or your perspective, right? It's a 2 millimeter nudge that can be like, oh, this entire new world has opened up to you. And it came with a question, a simple question, right?
Oh my God, it's so exciting. And that is what I love, back to just talking about our students a little bit. It's, in those first weeks, we hear questions that our students are asking that are 800 words long. And they're summarizing and echoing and, getting their hands around these questions. And that is the learning to just come in with that one short, concise question and just putting it into the middle of the session and then getting out of the way and just allowing the client to explore their landscape. And just, you always talk about the quality of your listening actually makes your client smarter in front of you.
Yeah, the quality of your listening is directly correlated to the quality of their thinking. It's true. Yeah. I mean, all we have to do, the example we use is try talking to somebody who's texting while you're talking to them, or shuffling papers or looking at their computer. And all you can do is think about, well, why aren't they paying attention to me? I guess I don't matter. What I'm saying isn't important. So that clogs all of your ability to clear your mind and your thinking process, right? Yeah.
You know what is coming to me right now too is people come into coaching, our coaching certification, and they're like, I want this. I want this thing. And we're like, great. And then they come to us in week 10 and we're doing a check-in and they're like, my relationship with my child has changed. Mm-hmm. My relationship with my partner has changed. Or I always love the ones too that are like, I can't believe that no one listens. No, everybody is listening to respond. I've been cut off a million times.
Yes. Or the metaphors. I can't believe how often people use metaphors.
Yes.
So fun. Yeah.
Like coaching has this ability. Yeah, we're so lucky, that I was just saying to friends that are staying with me right now, I got off a coaching call and I was like, I am so freaking lucky. And to be clear, I created my own luck for sure.
Well,
I,
luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So yes, you did create your own.
yes, yes. But I just feel so freaking blessed to be able to be in conversation and have the skill to deeply listen, ask good open-ended questions, and then just watch what happens with no judgment, with no assumptions, just echoing back language. I know this sounds like we're almost in class, but the thing is that these skills deeply serve our clients, and then they deeply serve our personal lives as we engage with our family, our community, etc.
Yeah. Yeah. I say this a lot. I probably sound like a broken record, but I'm going to say it again. It's a privilege to sit where we do, right? And okay, so we're surrounded by privilege at Canada Coach Academy. We have the community, we have the students, we have our team, which is amazing. And we all share this incredible passion. So we love to do what we do. And case in point is the meeting we had the other day where we're all coaches getting together and all you hear is this really respectful silence and pausing and open-ended inquiry. And it's just so funny.
Yeah.
But and it's funny, but it's also a blessing, right?
Yeah.
And so if there's something that you would like the audience to know about coaching that you think is just the hidden gem,
Ooh.
what would that be?
Oh my God, that's such a good question. What is the hidden gem of coaching? Well, I think we've been talking about it here already. It's all the self-awareness. It's all the self-development and the impact that has on just even your own system is profound, let alone then being able to touch others. And I would say that the one, like, I'm not sure. I'll be interested in your response to this. I think like one of the most required pieces is just courage. Just be courageous in your learning, be courageous to fail, be courageous to like reach out into the community and have a coaching call with someone who you don't know, be courageous to put that website up, be courageous. Like, I think that is, once we get out of our own way, it's amazing what happens, but we need to cultivate that courage. What do you think of that?
Well, I think the thing that's coming to mind is, what is courage? Courage is being scared as hell and doing the thing anyway, right?
Right.
It's not having fear. It's about stepping into fear, and to discover what's possible. And I think the scariest moments of my life have been the most transformative when I actually stepped in to that fear. And it's so powerful. Like it's such it's how we grow. It's how we develop. It's how we discover our potential, isn't it?
Yes.
It's how we discover our potential. We talk a lot about unlimited potential in coaching, and that's really what it is. It's discovering your potential through challenging yourself. We call coaching conversations disruptive conversations for a reason, because they're disrupting the habitual ways and patterns that we have of thinking and being, right? So I think, for me, the gem in coaching is, to discover what connection truly is and what it really means, you know, through a coaching conversation. I don't think that people have ever truly been seen or heard or feel like they matter as much as in a conversation with a coach. So, yeah. Well, I just want to say I love our conversations. I always do. We have a lot of them, and I'm happy
Yep.
that we can do this for others to maybe learn one or two things. That's all I hope. And yeah, really appreciate your time today. Appreciate having these conversations, and I hope you'll come back.
Anytime, literally anytime. Yeah, this has been so fun. I really appreciate the fact that you're doing this and you've stepped in to courage, and you're doing this and now it feels really good. And I think it's going to be fun to hear feedback from the community and from the larger community, to hear what they're learning from it.
Yeah, yeah. And if nothing else, it gives me a chance to connect with people on coaching, which I love. So yeah, no, thanks so much. Really appreciate your time.
Okay, Nathalie, thanks.